Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast, where we celebrate individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the outdoors. Gulf Shores and Orange Beach Tourism is the sponsor of our episode today. Warm temps and fresh seafood make the Alabama Gulf Coast the perfect beach destination for your family vacation, couples getaway, outdoor adventure, meetings, conferences, and conventions. Our guest today is Chris Blankenship. Chris is the Commissioner of the Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. Chris, it's a pleasure to have you on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I enjoy talking about our state and all the good things we have going on here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Fantastic. And I really very appreciative of the time you're taking away, because as I look at the desk behind you, I know you're a busy guy.
We have a lot of good things going on. Our legislature's been in town this week, and they went home yesterday. So today's my day to catch up on all the stuff I should have been doing all week when we were dealing with the legislature.
Oh, I can only imagine what that's like. Having lived in Alabama, in Montgomery for a year, whenever the state legislature was around and all the officials want to know how their dollars are being spent, my account that I worked on at the time, we were like jumping through hoops. So I totally appreciate what you just said. Before we get into why are you on this podcast, and I know our listeners are going to be excited to hear why, and I know I am. Tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, who is Chris Blankenship? Where were you raised? And how did you get into this outdoor space now as the commissioner?
Sure. So I grew up in a place called Dolphin Island. It's a small barrier island on the coast of Alabama. And it was a great place to grow up. You could ride your bike and fish and play golf. And there were very few people down there at the time. It was just, we have a huge bird sanctuary there. It was just a great place for the outdoors. And I kind of developed a passion there. I went to work on the charter boat when I was 14 years old and making, at that time, about $100 a day. I thought I was rich. That was back in the 80s, and you work on the boat every day. You're out there fishing, you're helping people fish, you're cleaning fish, just being outdoors, and they paid me for that. I was like, I kind of like this. Maybe I'll find me a career doing something like this long term. And I then went to the University of South Alabama. And I went to work with the Department of Conservation shortly after graduating from college, and just had the opportunity to do a lot of different things in the department. And now, as commissioner, get to be involved in things all over the state, not just on the coast.
Okay. Well, for our listeners and for me, what is the role of a commissioner within a state level department like Department of Conservation and Natural Resources?
So each state's always a little bit different in how they manage it. Some states have a commission, and they appoint an executive director or hire an executive director. Some states have different setups. But in Alabama, I am appointed by the governor. I work directly for her and then oversee the department. And here we have about 1,100 employees, and our budget next year, with some of the oil restoration funds and other things that we do, about $400 million. So it's a large operation, and it includes all of our state parks are under the Department of Conservation here, all of the wildlife and freshwater fisheries, the hunting side. We have 40 wildlife management areas, 23 state lakes, 21 archery parks, 12 shooting ranges, along with about 775,000 acres that we manage as WMAs. And we have our coastal section, which is all the saltwater, commercial and recreational fishing that we manage down there. And then our state lands division, where we are offshore oil and gas exploration, as well as the Forever Wild program, which is a great program that was set up for us to buy land to put in public trust in our state. So it's a pretty diverse and broad responsibilities, and no day is the same as the day before. So it keeps you from getting bored for sure.
I love it. And I appreciated a statement you made in the show notes that you sent us prior to the podcast. You said, Alabama is the most aquatically biodiverse state in America, with more miles of navigable waterways than any other state. And I was just taken aback by that. I mean, who would have guessed
Yeah, and there's a lot of things about Alabama that people that haven't been here or that are from other parts of the country haven't been exposed to in our state. And so we really do have a beautiful state and very diverse from the mountains in the north through the Tennessee River Valley, and then the river region there in the middle of the state, the Black Belt, which is because of all the fertile soils there in the rural areas, and then all the way down to the Gulf Coast. It's a pretty special place. And between all the lakes and the rivers and in the coastal areas, like I said, it's with all of the waterways, we have more aquatic species than anywhere else, and mussels and crayfish. I think we have like 50 different species of crayfish here in the state, and it's just really a special, special place.
All right. Now, when the legislature is not in session, what is the day in the life of a commissioner like? What's your day in the life like?
Like I said, with all those different divisions, we have a lot of initiatives going on in different places. We recently passed an $80 million bond for state parks, and so we're doing really adding some other money to that from something else. We're doing over $100 million in renovations in our state parks, and so that's happening from one end of the state to the other all at the same time. So that's pretty busy. And then we've been very successful in different programs on adding land, public land to the state. We've got a lot of species recovery grants for the Fish and Wildlife Service for some endangered species areas, along with some money for a Deepwater Horizon oil spill. So we've got a lot of land transactions going on, and then just managing the day-to-day operations with 1,100 employees is always interesting. With 1,100 people, even if you just have 1% of people that are having problems, that's just a lot. That's a lot of folks, a lot of things you got to deal with. So we've got contracts going on for all that work, and so it's just a busy place. But in the end, to just see the work that's taking place is very rewarding.
I love it. I love it. And a question I'm curious about, given the level or the amount of diversity and the programs, the initiatives that you're working on are underway or will be underway shortly or have been completed, access to these resources is very important. Because I remember living in Montgomery for that year in the early 90s. I kind of just aged myself, by the way. I remember 10 miles out of central Montgomery, I was in the country. And I imagine in the years since I was there, it's changed just a little bit. But how have these initiatives resulted in, say, greater access to folks who may not realize when we get off or out of our block or that square mile around the home I grew up, there's a lot of opportunity to explore, to breathe fresh air, take advantage of fishing or water sports, etc. What types of initiatives go on to really educate the citizens of Alabama, as well as the folks who are considering coming in? There's a lot of stuff for you to do here.
It really is. And that's been one of the initiatives of mine. I've been in this position about 6 years, and meeting with the governor and talking about my goals in the position. The top goal is to increase public access. And that was whether that's with state parks or wildlife management areas or whatever. We have all these great waterways, but if you don't have enough boat ramps or you don't have canoe kayak access, you can't get people on the water. Same thing with our land here. Most of the land, as in most states in the east and southeast, are privately owned. There's public land. It's not like out west where Nevada and Wyoming, some of those places have millions of acres of land that's owned by BLM or the National Park Service. In the east, it's just a little bit different. And so to add more land for public access, to me, has one of the primary goals. And so we've been able to do that. So we've added about 75,000 acres to our wildlife management areas and other properties here in the state. We're building boat ramps or improving boat ramps all over the place. And then we have a big initiative we're working with the legislature with right now to get about $8 to $10 million to do more boating access work that we can match some federal funds and really increase that, because it's very important for people to be able to get out and enjoy those natural resources that God has so blessed us with here in Alabama.
Sure. Now, how about the education component? Because I mean, you grew up in Dolphin Island, and I have heard of it. I've never been there. Who knows? When I come down in September, maybe I'll have. You still have the home there, by the way?
We do. We
All
do.
right.
You know, my dad still lives down there. We have a family house. My wife and I go to it every chance we get.
Okay. Okay. Now, how far is that from Gulf Shores?
So by water, it's about 30 miles. By road, we have to go around Mobile Bay. It's about 2 hours. But we can't take two people off the coast and move them to Montgomery and them not miss it. So we go down there and smell that salt water and salt spray as much as we can.
Okay. Well, so I want you to tell your dad, some guy is going to come by a boat. He's going to want to have a coffee or a beer with you. Okay.
That sounds good.
All right. So I'm curious about the educational component. And the reason I'm asking this is I imagine, besides being on a podcast like this, you have an opportunity to get out into the communities, wherever they may be, whatever associations or folks who are very passionate about their particular sport. And some little child comes up to you, tugs on your arm, and says, "Mr. Blankenship, thank you for visiting. How can I do what you do? Or how can I get more involved in fishing or hunting or boating, etc.?" And so I'm wondering, what types of initiatives does the department have when it comes to educating and really getting young kids excited about the work that you're doing and the resources that are available to them?
That's a good question. I appreciate you asking that, because we do have a lot of initiatives that are going both for young people and for adults. With our naturalists in all of our state parks, we're running education programs through all of the parks. Our communications and marketing section, we kind of rebranded that and retasked them about 5 years ago to do a lot more getting the word out to people about what assets we do have in Alabama and how they can be involved. But one thing that has we really changed our focus is we still do youth dove hunts. We still do youth duck hunts. We still do youth fishing programs. Those are all very important because you've got to get those young people exposed to the outdoors. But what we've also found is that there are a lot of young adults and median adults that just didn't participate in the outdoors. Like we have a group of time where with people my age and a little bit older, like their parents took them out and you did these things with your family. You hunted or you fished or you did stuff in the outdoors. And then we had a little bit of a time where that wasn't as important to that generation, or they were so busy doing other things that people didn't learn to hunt or to fish or to boat. And so we've really seen those young adults that have a desire and passion for that. So we've created a program over the last 3 years. It's called the 101 program. We have fishing 101, hunting 101, shooting 101. So the people that, young adults that want to be involved in that are maybe just a little apprehensive about going hunting or never learned to fish, don't know what tackle to buy or where to go or what to do. We've created these 101 courses and we want to see how they would go. Would we have some interest? Would there be a demand for that? We'll just try and see how it works. The first classes that we put out, it's like in minutes they were full and we had this huge waiting list. So we've had to add classes to that. And that just kind of shows the demand for the young adults that want to get into it, which is, it's been great to have that program. But the other part about that is how we're funded in the Department of Conservation. We don't get money from our state's general fund. We're funded by hunting and fishing license sales and an excise tax on hunting and fishing equipment that goes to the federal government that comes back to the states or people that come to our parks. So the youth programs are great, but if the youth doesn't have somebody to take them after the program, then it's just exposing them, but it's not really, it may or may not make them a lifelong hunter or fisherman. But these young adults and the people that are participating in our adult mentor program or these 101 program, they have some needs. They have a job. And if they really are passionate about it and learn that they love it, they'll go out and they buy rods and reels. They buy hunting equipment and camouflage clothing. They find a club to join or they want to hunt on public land. And so we've really seen that transition from just kind of an interest to then very probable lifelong hunters or fishermen or outdoorsmen. And so that's been kind of eye-opening. And so we've really changed a lot of our focus to try and meet that demand.
I like, appreciate what you've just shared, because it's funny. When I'm not podcasting, I'm a leadership coach, career transition, professional development. And sometimes I facilitate workshops on a particular tool, how to have better communication with your teammates. And folks would come to the workshop, but then there's nothing, they didn't practice the techniques when they left. And all of a sudden, what they learn over a course of 30, 60, 90 days, it just falls by the wayside and they're back to where they were. And that's very similar to what you've just shared with the kids, the young adults, even folks my age, by the way. But I'm going to share this with you. I've shared it elsewhere. I've never fished and I have never hunted, though I am in an organization that has a lot of folks who are very passionate about fishing and hunting, and especially the organizations that they join who are very much interested in conservation, stewardship, but also facilitating access to be able to do that sport that they're so passionate about. So I digress. I think the education is important, but what you just shared, there's organizations, there's mentoring that comes in afterwards that helps, in for sake of a better word, instantiate that new behavior, that new love of this particular sport, and it opens their eyes to other sports that they may not even have been aware of. So I love this 101 program. It's fantastic, which, even though you've really highlighted the importance of this program, one of the questions that I'm curious about, I mean, you've got all these divisions doing some great things in the department, and you've grown up in this department in your professional life. Is there a department that kind of is like really near and dear to your heart?
Well, I grew up on the coast, so the marine resources side on the coast. I've done that most of my career. So that's always very partial to the coastal things that we have going on. But really, I enjoy working with every single division. We've got passionate people, and they're all different in different missions and different goals. And so I really get to work with a tremendous group of people every day. And our division directors are passionate about it. One thing that's funny is when you start with the department, and I've been here, like I say, almost 30 years, it's very unusual actually for the commissioner to be from the department. In my 30 years, I'm the first person that's been commissioner that came through the department. Everybody else is generally an appointee from outside government. So that's been interesting. But when you're out in the boat, when you're working early in your career and you got your partner and you're out there and you're like, well, I don't know why the commissioner doesn't do this. If I was commissioner, I would do this, or I would fix that, or it's just, have those conversations hundreds of days or nights when you're out working, and then you actually get to be commissioner and you're like, oh, well, now I'm here. I'm going to fix all those things that we talked about. And some of those things we've been very successful at making those changes, and other things I'm like, oh, well, now I know why they never fixed that. That's either because of the bureaucracy or the state government, or for whatever reason, some of those things just are more difficult. And so it's been rewarding on one side to do some of those things that we talked about that should always be done. And then we've accomplished a lot of that. And it's also eye-opening on the other side to see that some things are just difficult and maybe not fixable. But those are few and far between.
Okay. Well, by the way, well played, Chris. Well played. So as far as some of the initiatives that are really at the forefront of the future of outdoor recreation and conservation and stewardship access in the land in Alabama, what are some of the major initiatives that you're working on right now?
So we got a lot of those. And we're going to go back to the access. We've got to be able to get our people on the property. We have a program in Alabama called Forever Wild. And it's a program, $15 million a year comes from the interest off of our Alabama Trust Fund. And that's used to purchase land in the state for public ownership, which is great. Through that program, we've acquired almost 300,000 acres. But if you, and that area is open for hunting or hiking, or we have horse trails. We have world-class mountain bike trails at two of our locations. But we can make access better. A lot of those partner with groups to build the trails or do things. But one of the initiatives we have, I know it seems kind of trivial or maybe not as important as some other things, but people have to feel comfortable to access these areas, whatever it is outside. So you've got to have secure parking lots that are big enough or secure so that people feel comfortable going there. You've got to have wayfinding signage on the trails so that people don't get lost, or that, that they're comfortable on these trails. We have to have diversity of the types of trails, some easy, some moderate, some strenuous, including on the biking trails. We've got, like I say, world-class, difficult trails. We also need some beginner trails that we're working on building now so that people can kind of work up to that. And not everybody comes in as an expert. And you started mountain biking, as we're seeing more and more people do that. You don't want to put somebody on a expert trail that maybe doesn't have the skills to be able to do that, could cause injury or discourage them from participating any further. So wayfinding signage, parking areas, building the diversity of trails. We're seeing that on Forever Rock property and in our state parks. So that's really something that we started a couple of years ago, and we're starting to see that come to fruition with a lot of construction going on, and been well received by the public.
Okay, fantastic. Speaking of state parks, this coming September, I will be traveling down to Gulf Shores in the Orange Beach area and to attend the Outdoor Writers Association of America, our annual conference. I am very excited. I finally did the smart thing. I booked a couple days prior to the event to enjoy the area, explore, get some good food, by the way. Always the good food. And then I made a day after the event to just explore a little more, to relax before I make the trek back home to Vegas. Now, I know the hotel that we are staying in is a Hilton hotel, but it's a very interesting property. I wonder if you could share a little bit about that.
Sure. So the Lodge at Gulf State Park, where the meeting is held, is a Hilton flagged hotel, but it's owned by the Department of Conservation. And we've worked with Hilton as for all the brand standards, and it's a beautiful 350-room hotel right there on the beach with 3 restaurants and a great meeting facility, and just spectacular place. And then we have a company that manages that for us. And so I'm excited that all of you are coming to Alabama, and even more excited that you're staying at our facility. But when you're there, what's interesting about Gulf State Park is that it is a 9,000-acre park in the middle of the fastest growing county in our state. So it's like a little oasis right there between all the development that's taking place. So there's the beach road is what we call it, the highway that goes down the beach. And so most people think of the park as being the beach side of the road. And we do have 3 miles of uninterrupted, beautiful sandy beach along the Gulf Coast that's part of our park. But on the other side of the road, we have 9 different habitat types within the park: freshwater, marsh, maritime forest, pine savanna. It is just unbelievably diverse in that small 7,000 or 8,000 acres. So we tell people, and we've built 2 bridges that cross over pedestrian bridges that cross over the highway, so you can get from the beach side and the lodge into the other side of the park. And we have free bikes that you can get from the hotel. Hope that people will take advantage of that while they're there and explore the 28 miles of trails that we have in the park that go through all of that diverse habitat. And I'm excited y'all are coming, and I can't wait for y'all to see the state of Alabama. That's at the park, but we've got a lot of other things that are besides just the beach or just the park. The Mobile-Tensas River Delta that comes down in Mobile is the 2nd largest river delta in the country. We call it America's Amazon because of the diversity of the species and plants and fish and animals that are there. We have some Indian shell mounds in there, some cultural resources that are pretty neat to see. We're kind of encouraging people to enjoy their time at the beach, but 45 minutes north, there's it's like a whole nother world up there of nature and diversity. And I hope that y'all will take some time and enjoy all of the outdoors has to offer in South Alabama.
Fantastic. Well, I love the beach, and usually it's with a morning coffee or an adult beverage in the sun come sundown. However, I love the diversity and getting up and seeing it and photographing. And I love, besides podcasting, my other love is photography, especially dark sky photography. So I'm hoping there'll be clear skies in September and do some nighttime shooting as well. But what's the best way to enjoy this Delta area? Is it via car and you stop off, or is it to see it via boat? What's the best way?
The best way is to see it by boat. There's some access points on all of the sides of the Mobile Delta where you can see it. But to really experience it, having a boat trip there is ideal. There's a Blakely State Park, where they have a boat, a trip from there. And then we have a facility called Five Rivers, which is on the causeway at the southern end of the Delta, and where we have boat trips that leave out from there. And we have some concessionaires with airboats and other things if you want to just go crazy and do something like that. But that's the way to see it. That's the when you get in those creeks and bayous and little backwaters where you really see the diversity of birds and alligators and all the other stuff that's in there. That's pretty neat.
I think I know what one of my free days is going to entail. It's going to have a nice breakfast, a little sunrise, coffee. I'm going to go do the boat ride, take some great pictures, and come back and eat good food and tell more stories. I love that. So I'm curious, Chris, as you kind of look back, you've said the number of years you've been at the department. As you look back in your career, going to school and just being raised on Dolphin Island, as you look back, what's your wow moment, your aha moment? Like, wow, I get to do this. This young kid out in the water playing and having fun, and now I get to do this. What's that aha moment for you?
When we were out, I started my career as a game warden on the coast, out in the boat, doing enforcing all the commercial fishing and then all the recreation stuff. So we'd be out in the boat, and there was all the time. I look at my partner, I was like, "You believe they pay us for this? Like, we get to be out in the boat, talking to people, making a difference here, and they give me a paycheck every 2 weeks." And sometimes I feel like I should do that for free. Then you have those days where it's 35 degrees and misty rain, and you're out in the boat having to do something. They ought to pay you triple for that. So I guess it all balances out. But I just tell you, every day, I don't feel like that I've had a job in 29 years. I feel like the Lord has blessed me with the opportunity to do this. And all throughout the different levels of supervision, you get to make a little bit when you're out by yourself, patrolling your one person, you're making a difference that day in where you are. But then as you move up on your supervising guys and you're kind of setting a vision for what they do. And then as you move into administration and now as commissioner, to be able to have what I think is a perpetual impact of the land we're buying and this public access and managing our resources for future generations, it is extremely rewarding. And I'm so thankful I get to do this every day. Don't tell the governor, but I do this for free. But my wife says I got to get a paycheck every, keep the lights on. But I just am so blessed to get to do this and work with the people I work with in a state that is so biodiverse and rich. It's really has been a wonderful life, wonderful career.
I love that. And as you were sharing that, a question popped in my head is, I don't know how often you bring new staff, new professionals into the organization, but I imagine every once in a while you have a cohort or, okay, we're bringing 5 people in, they're going to be in these roles, responsibilities. Maybe you have like a group meeting, a Zoom call. What do you tell those new folks when they're first coming into the organization? They're, job change, new job. It's a little bit stressful, or little life change going on and not knowing what they're getting themselves into. Was it all worth it? What do you as the commissioner tell these folks when they come into this organization?
I mean, most of the people that work for us, they'd have a real passion for what they do. That's why they went into that either in college, majored in biology or marine biology or forestry, or because they wanted to work outside and be a part of the resources. And on the hospitality side with our parks, they just love people, love doing this. And so it's not a whole lot of motivating you got to do because you got passionate people that this is what they chose to do for a career. But what's really interesting in dealing with what we do is it's not all science. If the science was all that you had to do to manage game species or fish species or whatever, but it's the social sciences as well. Managing animals is easy. It's managing people that are hard. And so that's part of it, is just teaching those folks to listen to the public, to listen to the people that enjoy the resource, whether that's on the hunting or fishing side, or that enjoy the canoeing, the kayaking, hiking, mountain biking, horseback riding. Those are our constituents. And that we really need to, that's who we're doing this for, not just for ourselves. And so that's what is harder to teach some of the folks that go into those fields, and is because they like animals. That's why, or they like trees. They're not necessarily people folks. They're
Right.
So what's interesting in this line of work is that you get people that come here that like to work by themselves or like to work outside, and they do a good job. So you keep promoting them into another managing people. And so we've really tried to work with some of our colleges and universities in those majors to start some management classes, to require them to take some management classes and some HR things so that they are prepared for that when they come to work for us.
Gotcha. Now, before we head out, what would you say to our listeners? I mean, they're the first time they're going to meet you. They had a chance to meet Scott earlier, but and we call this segment the Insight to Go, because we want you to kind of share something with our listeners. It could be a quote, a book, something that really helps drive you and your mission and your values that you would want to share with our listeners. What would be your Insight to Go?
I think, yeah, sometimes I like to put down Facebook and actually read a real book every now and then. I think that's important. And so, with all the things that we're doing here, you have to do it with partners. And we do a lot of stuff as a department, but we work in cities and counties and NGOs and different organizations. And so I say all the time, don't worry about who gets the credit for this. We can do so much if nobody worries about who gets the credit. And that's, I'm stealing that from multiple presidents, Ronald Reagan, Truman, I think is the first one to say that, but that is so true. If we want to do good work, who cares who gets the credit for it? Let's just do good things. And then the other thing I tell our folks is that ideas without money just stay ideas. We've got to beat the bushes and find funding, whether that's through our legislature or through working in those partnerships to find matching funds from organizations like the National Live Turkey Federation or Ducks Unlimited. We have great partnerships with them where they help us on projects and provide some funding that we can match with our licensed dollars or federal funds. And you got to have money to get things done. And I have been very thankful over the last few years, just with the economic condition of our state and things that have happened. We've been able to tap into some funding and do a lot of good things.
That's fantastic. Now, before we do head out, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and the work of the department, where are the best places for them to go?
The best place to go is outdooralabama.com, outdooralabama.com. That is our website that has something about all our division. And then Alabama, just Google Alabama Forever Wild, and that'll give you some information about all of those properties and what we have for access and a good interactive map on those locations.
Fantastic. And we'll also pick up Facebook just a little bit to give those backlinks to the social sites. But I totally get it. Sometimes I don't want to turn on the computer. I just give me a book to read. I love it. Chris, it's been a pleasure to have you on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. I don't often, well, every once in a while, I get somebody who's kind of at the top of the pyramid within their area of responsibility. And I think you are a great. Next time you share with the governor, you're in the governor's office and say, I just did a podcast and I think it went pretty well, because I think you did a bang up job today. And I really want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day. I know you want to get back to that work on the desk there and really sharing with our listeners what makes Alabama just a destination for whatever, almost any outdoor adventure that you have in mind or would like to do. It's down in Alabama. So thank you for taking that time.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you in person in a few months.
You got it. Listen, stay on the line. We're going to do a quick close and you and I can have a final chat. Okay? All right, folks, we have just been chatting with Chris Blankenship, Commissioner of the Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. This was a very interesting episode because we were able to cover a multitude of topics, everything from what are the outdoor resources in Alabama to some of the programs that to promote access, enjoyment, education, about the outdoor adventures that really are available to anybody who wants to come down to Alabama and just get away from the beach, get away from your urban town, and just enjoy the best that Alabama has to offer. And we really appreciate Chris sharing those moments. And I do love that his insight to go, especially quote number about it's amazing what you can accomplish together if no one cares to get credit. Because in this day and age, everybody wants credit for something, and so much good can happen when we all work together. And definitely a lot of great things are happening in Alabama when it comes to outdoor adventure. And really, I am looking forward to getting down to Gulf Shores and the state park and enjoy the hotel, the beaches, of course. But, I think there's a boat ride in my future. And I may even have to do a boat ride to Dolphin Island and have a coffee with his dad. But hopefully that'll happen. It might not, but we'll see about that. Now, folks, if you do enjoy this episode, I want you to go out to their website, outdooralabama.com. We'll also provide a link to the Forever Wild website, as well as to the social sites for the department. As for us, you can find this episode on the outdooradventureseries.com website. We are on LinkedIn and Facebook on our Outdoor Adventure Series pages, and we're also on all of the major podcast directories. Now, I do again want to thank Gulf Shores and Orange Beach Tourism for sponsoring this episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series and introducing us to Chris Blankenship, the Commissioner, Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. And to begin planning your beach vacation, getaway, or outing, visit the Gulf Shores and Orange Beach Tourism website at gulfshores.com. And we're going to provide a backlink to that as well. Okay, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day, and we will see you on a future episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care now.